Welcome to the Business Bravery podcast, inspiring stories from coaches and course creators to help you do the next brave thing in your business. Coming up on the Business Bravery podcast.
We're like children with bank accounts, which is hilarious, but
that's really interesting. Why do you feel that way?
When we're children and you get your pocket money and you just spend it on whatever you want, because you're like, this is what I want. I want the dog that's gonna light up and bark and flip over and sing a song. I want that, so I'm gonna invest in it. So that's why I say, we're like children with bank accounts, because what we do is we invest in the things that really matter to us. That's what I mean by that. It's not that we don't look after our bank accounts, because we absolutely do. I mean, we're very fortunate to be debt free. We live and die by our budget. But when it comes to the investments we do make, they're things that, like a child would in that moment deeply want that dog toy, as if it was the only toy that ever was going to exist in the world. That's how we choose to invest our money, in the things that really make a difference for us and we really, really want them. And I was like, girl, if you think that I am sweetness and positivity and light in my brain all the time, you got a different thing coming. So, I was talking to her about all these experiences, and I was like, I said this and I regretted it, and I had to go back and I had to apologize, and it was embarrassing. Actually, something that I have done, and this is so terrible. You're going to 100% people are going to judge this, and I love that for you guys, but I was really proud of myself. There was a girl, she came to one of my events. This was maybe a year ago, and she was talking about how she'd been bullied at school, and I was like, I know I was a part of that. And she had come to my event for support, and I was like, I'm gonna have to stop this call. And I stopped the call and I said to everyone, I have to apologize to this woman. I won't name her because she may not want people to know, but I was like, I have to apologize to this woman because I was a part of that bullying, and I'm really sorry. And it was one of the most embarrassing moments of my whole life. And I know people are going to judge me for it, but I'm okay with that because I made my peace. But I'm happy to share if I have fallen down and I have fell flat on my face, if I've done something wrong, if in the past I've done something and now can reflect on it through a different lens, and I can say, hey, I didn't realize what I was doing. I was in this kind of mental space. I didn't have the capacity to deal with this. I'm the first person to hold up my hand and say, I f***ed up and I'm sorry.
I'm your host, Tiffany Gilliland, an Australian business and launch coach with 10 years experience in online marketing. I'm also the creator of the Brave Launch Framework. I help coaches to be brave so they can stop overthinking that next big brave step and finally make more impact and get more clients. From speaking on camera to selling to launching, my approach to bravery helps you take bigger leaps without the mindset spirals. It's the secret ingredient to bigger results. Today, I'm talking to Rebecca Nesbit, an amazing life and business coach who had the bravest of conversations with me. She talked about how her and her husband are like children with bank accounts, in a good way, as well as her ability to share stories even if it's embarrassing because it will help someone. Things got really personal when Rebecca told me the story of owning up to having bullied someone, and I honor her bravery in how she handled that situation. Having the integrity to own a past mistake and say sorry is something that truly inspires me, especially as someone who avoided criticism and judgment for most of my life, and also with a past involving having been teased and bullied a little bit at school, and then having also crossed that line once or twice myself before realizing, oh, that's not who I want to be. Although I was a kid, I was still working it out. This is kind of really a brave step for me to share all of this kind of thing. I didn't know we were going to go here in this conversation, and that's why I just really honor that from Rebecca. And she also shares some other stories, like how she started in multi-level marketing, transitioned into yoga teaching before finally moving into life coaching, thanks to the encouragement of an amazing coach and mentor in her life. And that's an amazing story. Stay tuned for a fascinating discussion as we discover stories of Rebecca's business bravery, past, present, and future. Now, who's ready for some business bravery inspiration? Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. I am here today with the amazing Rebecca Nesbit, who is an amazing coach, and we've been having these awesome conversations, and I've been following her for a little while. And I can't wait to chat more with her about Bravery and all of the good stuff that she's doing. She currently has a mission to help 100 women, which is very similar to my mission or my quest this year, which is to inspire 1,000 women through the podcast. And so, yeah, we really connected on that and had great chats back and forth. And yeah, I'm looking forward to diving in. Hi, Rebecca. How you doing?
Oh my gosh, what an introduction. Excuse me. I'll bask in the glory of us both. No, I'm so good. I'm so excited to be here. And if we can, do whatever we can to share this and to help you to reach that mission, I know I'm going to do it. I would encourage everyone else who's listening to do it as well, so that we can get you to that goal. That's what it's all about. It's about us helping each other.
Absolutely. Okay, so tell us about your business, and also tell us what brave things you're doing right now in your business. So catch everyone up.
I always say life coach first, business coach second. That's how I like to run my business. That's how I like to run my life. I do truly believe that there are no business problems. There are only personal ones. And when we work through those, then we can really find different levels and versions of ourselves. So that's, I suppose, real broad brush of what I do. And I feel like at this point in society, we all kind of have an idea of what a coach does. And I think that maybe what's more important to lead with are what are the values of my coaching, as opposed to what is it specifically that I do, because then we'd be here. I mean, you'd be here all day, I'd be here all night. We're in a different time zone. So, we want to keep it sharp and short for people that are consuming it. But I suppose that the values that I lead by are honesty is really key. I like to put across who I really am on social media and in situations like this. And if I have a story, no matter how embarrassing it may be for me, to share that could support someone else to get through a breakthrough, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do that. And also, I really like to be transparent. And something I noticed from following you, Tiffany, is, the transparency in finance, I feel very strongly about, and also helping, specifically on the business side, women to find out what their conversion is and what will give them the closest you can get to financial stability in your own business as you can at the beginning. So those are real pillars of what I coach, is really that honesty, that financial transparency, as well as having as much fun along the way, because it just doesn't have to be dramatic, y'all. We can actually have fun in growth. I think we forgot that, when you're nose deep in a book that's from, the freaking 19th century that's telling you how to win friends and influence people. No offense to that book, it's a great read. But I think that we kind of get lost, right? We get lost in, oh, this should be hard. This shouldn't be fun. But actually, I like to make my coaching as fun as possible. I mean, sometimes my clients would tell you, sometimes we laugh till we cry. Sometimes we just cry. And sometimes it can be really emotional. But I suppose it's just saying everything goes, and we're going to put that fun, that positive spin on it, so everyone's having a good time. That's how I run my coaching business, I'd say. And to answer your second question, what are some brave things I'm doing right now? I just launched a networking group for female entrepreneurs, which is so exciting. You won't have seen any things on socials because I launched it in private and sold it out. So I'm overly blessed by that, and it's something that I was a little bit nervous to do, so it feels like a real brave step forward, because you're kind of stepping into that facilitation role for people that aren't your clients, and I think that's a big deal. So that's something brave that I've been doing, and even putting that out felt like, oh my gosh, how am I going to put this out? And then I didn't even have to, so I psyched myself up for something that I didn't even have to do, which was hilarious. Other brave things. So being involved in more speaking opportunities. So being here is such a gift. I genuinely think you were sent to me by some kind of angel. And I have a podcasting summit that I'm speaking at coming up. So that'll be my first summit that I've spoken at, which is really cool and completely terrifying, but really cool. And I am planning to launch my first group program, which will become my signature program, which is really exciting. I've had a lot of one-to-one experience, and whether we dive into that in this call or not, I've had a lot of one-to-one experience, and I feel like I now have a really refined process of supporting people to that breakthrough in the shortest amount of time. Not that there's not an extension of that program to continue to work alongside each other, but that kind of first initial breakthrough that we're looking for in business to actually really start doing the work and not just thinking about the work, I feel like is a bit of my zone of genius. So that's going to be coming out, which is a bit nerve-wracking. It's nerve-wracking to, I know we've had conversations before about selling, it's a bit nerve-wracking to sell that way. I've always sold through a sales call, and that has always, been a different experience than selling through maybe a sales page. So I'm excited to make that transition, but I'm a little nervous, about it too. And probably the final bravest thing I'm doing right now is I have just joined a really high level mastermind with Brendan Bouchard, who's, if you know him, you know him. If you don't, then he won't mean anything, but he's one of the top high performance coaches in the world. So I'm really excited to go to his mastermind, but that comes with its own level of bravery of being a huge investment for myself and my husband. And also we're going to be going to LA to go to in-person events, and we live in Texas, y'all. So if you don't know the US, we're far. We're pretty far away from each other. So, that was something that we took on as a couple that really showed how brave and courageous we are together, and also how probably a little bit crazy we are together too. We're like children with bank accounts, which is hilarious. But those would be the brave things that I'm doing right now.
Oh my gosh, we're children with bank accounts. That's really interesting. Can I ask about why do you feel that way about, like, you're investing in all of these things, and yeah, like, why does it feel like that to you, if you don't mind me asking? Yeah.
Oh no, please do. And I think this is such a great perspective, is that when we're children and you get your pocket money and you just spend it on whatever you want, because you're like, this is what I want. I want the dog that's going to light up and bark and flip over and sing a song. I want that. So I'm going to invest in it. So that's why I say, we're like children with bank accounts, because what we do is we invest in the things that really matter to us. So I think that's what I mean by that. It's not that we don't look after our bank accounts, because we absolutely do. I mean, we're very fortunate to be debt free. We live and die by our budget. But when it comes to the investments we do make, they're things that, like a child would in that moment deeply want that dog toy, as if it was the only toy that ever was going to exist in the world. That's how we choose to invest our money, in the things that really make a difference for us and we really, really want them. So yeah, that's why I phrase it like that. But I think it's such a fun way to look at money, instead of it being like, oh, the money conversation again.
I've been in online marketing for 10 years, been doing coaching since like 2017, and teaching and that kind of stuff. And I've read all of these money books. Like, there was this questionnaire about money, and it was like, tell us about all the books. And I went through my Kindle, and it was like, there's this big long list of all the money books that I've read. And I've never come across anybody who said, I'm like a child with a bank account. I was just like, oh, but I like how you explained it, because at first, I was like, oh, that sounds like could be a little bit judgy, but it's like, oh, no, this is just leaning into that fun and that, that experience of it and that kind of thing. Was that when you started your business? Did you have that in mind, of you wanted to have that kind of freedom? Did children with bank accounts come up in your mind when you were probably planning forward, or is that just sort of how you see it now? It's like, oh, hey, here's where I'm at, and that's sort of how you see it now.
That's how I see it now. And I think that, this is such an interesting conversation to get into. And I love that these questions are coming out. Great questions, Stephanie, great questions. But I feel like every entrepreneur has to go on this journey with money and finance, and figuring out what stability is for them and how much money is going to be the amount of money. And I think that we take it very seriously. That's why there are so many books on it. There are so many courses on it. And really more recently have I leaned into the fun of money. And, you know, I didn't read We're Like Children with Bank Accounts in any book. If it's in a book, please message me, DM me and let me know. But that genuinely just came out of my brain. And I just think it's because it takes a lot of the fun out of it sometimes when we look at money, when we look at the numbers that are in the bank and we say, okay, well, we can only afford this, that, and the next thing. Whereas if we actually looked at it as if these are the things that, for lack of a better term, and I know this is going to sound like people are going to be like, oh, over the head with this one, but, you know, if we start looking at what we get to spend our money on, I know that that's not the same for everyone, because I've been in debt before. You know, for the longest time it literally said on my Instagram 5-figure debt to 5-figure months. You know, it was like there's a big disparity there. But I think because I had been in that amount of debt and I had got myself in it, you know, that was my choice as a consumer, then I had to pay all that off, and it meant that money wasn't that fun for a long time. Money was very not fun for a long time, and we still had other things we were investing in. So I think that now, to be able to look at it and look back and see what did I really learn, one of the biggest things I learned was to have fun money. It was to have a small amount. It was, you know, it was $50. It's still $50 of fun money. You know, investment money is totally different from fun money, but, you know, it was $50. It still is $50. And that's purely money that I can spend where I don't feel like, oh, I don't have any money, I can't go for a coffee with my friend. You know, like I said, we live and die by our budget, absolutely. But I never max out that $50 somehow. It's like it magically is always there. And it just gave me so much peace to have like guilt-free money that I feel like that's why like more money continued to roll in, was because I had this more playful attitude. And myself and my husband, we would joke about what we'd spend our fun money on. He was like, I'm not going to spend any of my fun money and I'm going to invest it. And that's what my husband's like. He doesn't sound like that. He's like got a very like delicious accent, if I do say so myself. But, you know, he's very focused on like what he wants to do. Whereas, you know, I was like, I'm going to go see like a new dinosaur movie at the cinema and get a pickle. And it's going to be so good. Or I'm going to go like dancing. We go dancing with our 91-year-old grandfather, who's wonderful. But I'm like, I'm going to get a bougie drink, you know? And I'd never end up getting the drink. I would just go to the dance. But there was always, it was possible, you know, the fun was always possible. The joy was always there. The money was there, and it didn't have to be a lot. And I think that since having that, I've seen money as more fun and as more playful. And I also just feel like we spend all of our like childhood trying to be adults, and then we spend all of our adults wishing we were children. So I just bring that energy in as much as possible, because I'm like, children know what they want. They know exactly what they want. They don't second guess themselves. They have the most fun. They fall down, they get back up. I mean, if we could learn anything from children about business, it would be those three things, you know? So yeah, that's why I brought it in that way. And I'm so grateful. It gave you so much joy. I feel like this needs to be a post now or something.
Oh, don't worry. It's in my head. It's going to be all over the marketing. Depending on what else comes up. I might not commit to that, but yeah, it's really interesting what you said about the children and being inspired by them and sort of bringing in that energy. I once heard this story about someone who was teaching their child business skills, and so they went to this marketplace and they set up a little stall, and the kid had something they were selling. I can't even remember what it was now. Something you would sell at a market, and had a price on it. And a few people came by and talked to the child, and, you know, and they all said, oh, no, I don't want to pay that much. And what was really interesting was that the parent was sort of saying, oh, maybe you should drop your price. No, not doing that. And then somebody came along and bought everything. And so, yeah, it's just really fascinating how like we as like adults can really get in our heads and overthink things. And, oh, a few people said, no, we should change this. And then this childlike confidence, I guess, comes through, and it's like, no, I'm not changing. And it's just such a valuable lesson that sort of always ticks over in my head, especially because I help my clients with launching and doing marketing, and the subject of pricing always comes up, and it's always kind of this psychological thing of how much do I charge, and sort of this trying to find this middle ground of well, how do you feel about that price? Because if they don't feel it, then they're going to be going out and second guessing themselves, and that's going to show up in their energy and that kind of thing. So yeah, I love that story.
Absolutely. We can learn so much from children.
For sure. Okay, so you said earlier that you are getting into sharing lots of stories about yourself, no matter how embarrassing. And I'm asking you about this because this is something that I'm working on, and I can imagine that there are other people listening who are working on as well. So how do you do that? How do you be brave? Like what yeah, can you tell us more about your journey with that and what it was like sort of before and where you're at now? So.
I feel like you kind of learn as you go with this one. There's no unfortunate quick fix for this one. I wish that there was. But I suppose for me, what my journey was I don't share stories for no purpose. And I think that's the distinction, is that if I'm going to share something deeply embarrassing or doesn't paint me in the best light, because do you know what? We all think that we're Mother Teresa, but honey, none of us be that enlightened. So, we all think that we're wonderful and that we never do any wrong, and the things that we do wrong, we'll just keep quiet. And bringing those things up, you maybe have, oh gosh, here we go. Now I'm going to riff on embarrassing stories I have about myself, but we're here, we're in it. So maybe I'll have, a client in front of me. One of my clients, just a few weeks ago, actually was kind of chatting about how when she's stressed, she can be pretty harsh in her own mind, and she can be pretty harsh towards herself, or she can be pretty harsh outwardly to, her partner or her family. And I was like, girl, if you think that I am sweetness and positivity and light in my brain all the time, you got a different thing coming. So, I was talking to her about all these experiences, and I was like, I said this and I regretted it, and I had to go back and I had to apologize, and it was embarrassing. I said this because I was upset or I was angry, and I had to somehow figure out how to be okay with that and move on. I have ended friendships because I did something wrong. I have actually something that I have done, and this is so terrible. You're going to 100% people are going to judge this, and I love that for you guys, but I was really proud of myself. There was a girl, she came to one of my events. This was maybe a year ago, and she was talking about how she'd been bullied at school. And I was like, I know I was a part of that. And she had come to my event for support, and I was like, I'm going to have to stop this call. And I stopped the call and I said to everyone, I have to apologize to this woman. I won't name her because she may not want people to know, but I was like, I have to apologize to this woman because I was a part of that bullying, and I'm really sorry. And it was one of the most embarrassing moments of my whole life. And I know people are going to judge me for it, but I'm okay with that because I made my peace. But I'm happy to share if I have fallen down and I have fell flat on my face, if I've done something wrong, if in the past I've done something and now can reflect on it through a different lens, and I can say, hey, I didn't realize what I was doing. I was in this kind of mental space. I didn't have the capacity to deal with this. I'm the first person to hold up my hand and say, for lack of a better term, and I'm going to cuss, so I don't know how you feel about this in a podcast, but I fucked up and I'm sorry. Or I'm fucked up and I stand by it. There's also the other side. But most of the time, it's I messed up and I don't feel good about it. So I had to figure out how to almost like repent, how to get that apology across, or how to forgive myself, because it's not always about other people forgiving you. It's a lot of the time about how do you feel about yourself, and are you willing to forgive you for that embarrassing situation, whether it was embarrassing, funny embarrassing, like you pee your pants in public, which is me every time I sneeze, just so everyone knows we're on the same page. And it can also be, embarrassing because you've done something that you're not proud of. But it's those moments that's what makes us different from AI. That's the moments where we're truly human. And that's the moments where we can really connect. And when someone can see themselves in that story in any point of their life, and it changes their perception or it supports them on their journey, then there's nothing more rewarding, fulfilling, and soul soothing than if your experience that you're not proud of or that you're embarrassed by helps someone else. So that's how I get through the, the embarrassing moments of sharing things that were hard or sharing things that were point blank embarrassing, because if it's going to help someone, it's always worth it, in my opinion.
I just want to thank you for being so brave and sharing that story of yours. It's an interesting situation, because in that call, there's so many options open to you. And I don't know how many people would actually stop the call and say, hey, I need to own up and admit that I was a part of that. Like, it could be a lot easier, or just even out of a worrying sensation and not knowing what to do, potentially just like not take that action and continue with the call and things like that. So yeah, definitely.
And especially sorry to interrupt, but something I wasn't clear on was, this call was for prospective clients. These were people that would potentially have wanted to work with me. And what a red flag. Anyone that has ever been bullied, I've been bullied myself and I've been a part of it. I think we all maybe in some version of our lives have. But, if anyone had connected with that, they'd been like, I don't want to be coached by her. Oh my gosh, she's a terrible person. We put our judgmental hat on, because when it's not us, then we're judgmental. I mean, we scroll on social media and all it is, am I judging this person or am I comparing myself against this person? Like, that's your two options. So we're programmed to do this. We're programmed now by social media genuinely to do this. So we're very used to doing it, and used to doing it very quickly. So I think that you're right. Like, not everyone would stand up and say, hey, I was a part of that. I'm just going to pause the call just to really dig into this and apologize. And then let's get back to what we were doing. But I suppose it feeds into, at the beginning, what I can promise my clients is I'll be honest with them, even if it doesn't paint me in the best light, if it doesn't paint them in the best light, if it is truly honest about something that I see in their life. So for example, I want 10 clients, but I'm not willing to reach out to get them. Then it's like, okay, well, there's a problem. There's a mismatch. I'm going to point it out as I see it, with the most love, with the most compassion. But there are some things that are hard to hear, but that's what you're there to do as a coach. I'm not there to make everyone feel, great about themselves 100% of the time, no matter if they're not growing, if they're not trying. I'm there to highlight what's true and to support that person to grow. Like, coaching and therapy are not the same. So you're there to support someone to the next level of themselves. That's why they pay you. So that comes with a degree of honesty. And I suppose I can't say, hey, I'm an honest coach, if I'm not willing to be honest.
Oh wow, that's so powerful and inspiring. I just thank you so much for sharing that and being so open, and just So I wanted to just dive into some other things that you talked about with Bravery, if that's okay.
Oh my gosh, go for it. We're rocking and rolling.
Awesome. So before this got me, you said that you are going to be doing a summit and you are terrified about that. I was wondering if you could tell me a bit more, like, what is it about the summit that terrifies you? You've done a lot of brave things so far. What is it that about that that's sort of hitting those buttons for you? So yeah.
So one is that I don't have clarity yet. So we haven't had our kind of initial speaker call. So I don't have 100% clarity on what I can and cannot deliver and what that looks like. So I have an idea in my head of what I think sounds good. And I've pitched it back and forth with the woman that's delivering the summit. However, without clarity, I find that kind of uncertainty really gets me. So I want to know, how much time do I have? When is it going to be? Because they've changed the dates a few times. So I think that, as an entrepreneur, as a businesswoman, I try and really not change the dates for people, because I know that can cause that upheaval. So I feel like on the other end of that, I'm like, oh, that's like a little stressful. So I would love to know when it is. I'd love to know exactly what I'm delivering, but also it's a podcasting summit, and I had not released a podcast before Tuesday for 6 months. So I feel very like imposter syndrome can set in very quickly. However, what I understand to be true is that there was value in what I had to offer. I am not offering how to promote or monetize a podcast, which is not, you know, to quote one of my favorite books by Jason Reynolds, it is, I don't know nothing about that. It's the most wonderful book, and it's called For Everyone, and most of it is about him actualizing his dream, but before it happens, he just keeps saying, I don't know nothing about that. So I'm not sharing something that I'm not 100% confident in. I'm sharing how to create the system to give you financial stability. So how to work out what is converting, and not how to monetize on podcast, but how to understand how the monetization works on the back end. So I feel confident in what I'm sharing. And I think that the reason why it feels terrifying, you know, in one word, one way to say it, is because I don't have 100% of the clarity. And also there is that little sneaky, and I think we all have a little imposter syndrome sometimes, little sneaky imposter syndrome. It's like, girl, you ain't been podcasting for 6 months. However, I do feel really good about releasing my podcast on Tuesday. So, you know, we're getting back in the swing of things, and I am sharing something that I am 100%. I know this information is true across all business. So it's 100% applicable. And it's just really leaning into, you know, this is my zone of genius, and it's okay to reflect on the time I was in podcasting and bring it into now. So I think that there was that little disconnect in the summit, but I feel more excited about it as I talk about it. You know, I want to be honest in that, you know, there's that side of it that's always going to be scary. Until you do something, I feel like it always is scary. Until we met, this was always going to be scary in its own way. But I suppose that it's almost transferring. I call it, and I got this from Julianne Hough because I just love her. She's like a deity in my book. And she always says she's nervous and excited, so she's nervited. So I just feel like I'm nervited most of my life. And that feels good to me.
Oh man, I love that. Nervited. So just a quick question then. So you were podcasting for how long, and then you took a break, and now you're getting back into it, is that right? So how long were you podcasting before your break? Yeah.
So I had 40 episodes under my belt before the break.
Okay. Yeah. And
so I wasn't like 100% newbie, have never podcasted before.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. And then so what caused you to take the break, if you don't mind me asking?
So the time where I took the break, I took a break from everything, actually. I took a break from podcasts, from YouTube. I stopped posting as much on my social media. And what I did was I learned the information that I coach now. I learned how do I focus on what converts? How do I focus on what they call, you know, that 20% that makes the difference? If you look at the Pareto principle, you know, what is my 20%? And then how do I do more of that and less of the things that aren't converting currently? So now I know what converts, and I have a stable business. Now I have the excitement and the energy to go back to the things that I had kind of let go of, because something I also let go of, I think sometimes when you're really trying to figure something out, especially when it comes to finances, like let's go back to finances for a second, you're really trying to figure something out, you get so tunnel vision, that I had to be that tunnel vision to understand what was going on in my business, because no one had coached me that. People had coached me, this is how you market, this is how you get across your programs, this is how you sell, these are all the things you do. But no one had said, what's the specific system that's going to work for you? Because I don't think anyone outside of you can say that unless they're a coach that's working with you intimately. So I had all these ideas and all of these things I could do, but what was actually making the difference? So when I worked out what actually makes the difference and what moves the needle, then I had to remember that the reason that I'd started podcasting and YouTube in the first place is because I want to be a speaker. That's why I did it in the first place. And I had forgotten that. I had forgotten that part of my dream and my vision. And I told myself that I couldn't do it because I was coaching one-to-one and I was, you know, traveling in the same time. I had immigrated from the UK to the US. So it was also a really big shift for us personally, myself and my husband. We got married, you know, there's that. So there was big shifts going on in my life, and I had to streamline everything to take care of myself, my finances, and to work a lot out. And I feel like now there's been so much worked through and worked out that I have all of the energy and the abundance to come back to those things with so much more specificity, so much more excitement, and so much more motivation to keep going. I think sometimes, we need a break, and we're not good as a society at taking that break. So I took a real good break. So I'm very fueled going forward now.
That's awesome though. Like I hear a lot of talk about how, the world is run in these seasons, and there's sort of that time for winter and recovery and that kind of thing before spring. And I find it interesting that for us as humans, it's like we need those cycles just as much as anyone to sort of refresh and get enthused, to learn things for the next phase. And yet our society is all programmed into no, just keep going, keep going. It's just, yeah, I find that interesting. The other thing I wanted to sort of say is, maybe of what you could be talking about at the summit is about coming back from a break, because I know plenty of podcasters who take breaks and then have to come back. And yeah, I mean, like, yeah, it could be something that could, that your perspective on that could be really valuable to people in that area as well.
Yeah, it's definitely an extra nugget for, the beginning. And I think it goes back to being honest. I 100% was not going to go on and be, I've been podcasting since like 2021, even though technically that would be accurate. You could say that.
Yeah.
But no, I'm 100% going to be that open and transparent at the very beginning. And then I'm going to say the reason why is because I learned what I'm going to teach you now. So I love that you picked up on that too. That makes me feel really good about it. So thank you.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of interesting because, I mean, like as we're recording this, I've just done a couple of posts telling people I'm taking a self-care pause from the podcast, from releasing episodes just for a week, so that I can just refresh and not burn out. So yeah, that's where the value in taking a break and all of that. I think it would be on more people's minds than just how do I make my podcast work. And yeah.
Yeah, and I think as well when it comes to taking a break, I mean, it's if I coach hustle, I coach rest more. I coach a lot about intentional rest and taking the time before you need it. So for example, what you're doing right now, and I know that, to quote Brendan Bouchard, he shares this story about high performance vehicles and about when, Formula One drivers are going around the track, they don't need to take a pit stop, but they do, because what do? They change their wheels, they make sure they've got enough gas, they do 100 other things that I absolutely don't know because I've never watched Formula One, but he explains it way better than me. But the fact remains, they don't need to take the break. They take the break for high performance. So taking the break now means that you don't have a 6-month break down the line and you get to where I was and you think, why can't I do all of these things and, juggle all of these balls like I used to when I was completely safe in a very comfortable setting, that being the UK, where I grew up, where I knew everything, to come to America where I knew nothing. I mean, even, I love H-E-B. It's a Texas-owned supermarket, and I just think it's the best grocery store in the world. Everyone's different. I mean, I do love me some Whole Foods for my Americans, but, even different supermarkets, different products, different ways of life. The fact that people, carry guns and you can see them and you're like, oh, he's got a gun. That's very interesting. Even just little things. And, we're very fortunate. We live on a ranch in the south of Texas. It's beautiful, but also that isolation coming from, I lived in Edinburgh, which is the main city in Scotland, which was full of life and vibrancy and coffee shops, to go from that to I'm like neighbors with 4 deer, a raccoon, a possum, about 150 cattle, it's just a very different way of life. And we don't give ourselves the rest, for lack of a better term, but we don't give ourselves the time sometimes to integrate. When we go through a huge life change, we go through a whole business change, my business was also changing at the same time. So I think that intentional rest is one of the most powerful things that you can do. And I love that you're taking a week off podcast. I think that's amazing.
And I also just want to sort of shout out like the bravery it must have taken moving from the UK to Texas and all of that. And I just I get that. Like I moved to South Korea in my 20s to teach English, and so did a whole kind of got into a whole different culture that way. I've lived in Mexico and Germany. German's my second language, so I just I kind of get that shift and that whole the different experience. I mean, for me, like this is a small town in Australia where I live and lots of wide open space and all that kind of thing, and then I moved to South Korea, which is like 12 million people in a city and it's just so different. But I get that shift and all that sort of stuff. So okay, so I'd love to travel back because this is not your first business. We had a bit of a chat about you've had other businesses before this and you learnt some stuff and did some brave things possibly to shift and that kind of thing. Can you tell us a bit about your past business and sort of what brave things you did and that shift?
Yeah, so I started in the online space in network marketing, actually. And something that we didn't actually say in the DMs is that I was still coaching at the same time. So my full-time job was as a personal advisor, then a careers advisor for a government organization. So I was going through my coaching qualification at university in the time where I was starting up my network marketing business. So I was very fortunate to have a coaching background and grounding that really supported the network marketing business. Because if you don't know what network marketing is, essentially it's, those people online that are promoting a product and they're a part of a community. And, I'm trying to explain it so it doesn't sound like a pyramid scheme, because essentially like that's what people think, isn't it? Like it's what people think. It's the question I got most of the time. And I was like, it's not a pyramid scheme, but it's your kind of, I'm trying to think of even different countries and what it'd be. It's your Arbonne, it's your Avon. I don't know what it would be in Australia. You'd have to,
we have Avon and the like Mary Kay and all that sort of social selling. I think these days you could call it social selling, but back in the day it was get all your friends into a room, do a presentation and kind of low key pressure them into buying or be shamed, publicly shamed.
There's that. So I think that the industry has come really far away, and I think that there are people that do it well and there are people that don't do it so well. I just think every business in my mind, I'm like, you're going to go to a good hairdresser, you're going to go to a bad hairdresser. It's just going to happen that way. So I do think it's amazing in what it gives people. And I believe in it for other people. I don't love it for me, but I love it for others. So I started out in network marketing and I did that for about 3 years and 2 years, maybe 2 years. I got to the kind of qualification for the third level. So that's where, it was starting to really replace my income. So it was starting to be something pretty incredible. And I got to that qualification level and you had to hit a turnover of 10,000 in a month. And we did it by the skin of our teeth, myself and my team. And then the next month we brought in nothing, not a single sale. And I was just like, how am I going to do this at the next level when there's like a car involved? And then if I don't make it X amount of months, myself and my team, and you can't force other people to do things, then what does that mean for my life? And that instability really shook me. And it kind of pulled me out the company slowly but surely, over the next maybe 6 months. I wasn't doing as much. I wasn't on as many, because what I loved was I loved connecting with people. I loved coaching people. I loved helping people to, send those first messages. And, I loved getting on calls and coaching people and going to our big trainings and people asking me questions. And like, I thrived in that part. So I knew what my area of genius was. I thought I had to be attached to this company and it didn't. And then also when I started to look at the finance and I was like, $10,000 has rolled through my company and my paycheck is not $10,000. I was like, where's the mismatch here? So then I started to really realize, okay, well, I could do something for myself. So I had transitioned out of network marketing, not because it wasn't wonderful. I want to highlight that for anyone that's in network marketing. I love that for you. I love that for you. Keep going. You're amazing. But it wasn't right for me. But what it looked like it would give me was location freedom, and that's what I wanted. So then I started to think, what else could give me location freedom? And at the time, I found yoga. So I fell deeply in this relationship with yoga. I loved yoga the whole time I was doing network marketing. I was doing yoga, and I had booked through my yoga teacher training. So I went to Romania. I did my yoga teacher training. Very fortunate to have been in such a beautiful place to do my training. We were up in the mountains, and it's just stunning. And then I was just like, I'm going to be, a yoga instructor. I'm going to doss around the world. I'm going to go to nice places. I'm going to find a job as a yoga teacher. I'm going to teach yoga, and then I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to experience life. And that's all I wanted, was location freedom and the ability to go wherever I wanted to go and wherever the wind blows me. And then COVID hit. And I was like, well, I better start a yoga business where I am. So I started a yoga business. And it was in a very small island. I'm from an island called Shetland in Scotland. So this was before I moved to the big city. And I started teaching yoga online. I was in the pandemic. I was teaching yoga online, and I had done a few classes that you were allowed to do. And I had done a few classes there before the pandemic as well. So I was kind of dipping my toe in, but in the pandemic, I was like, I really want to make this something. So I did, and I started teaching online, and I started delivering classes, and it was wonderful. But, my body was like broken by the end of the weekend. I was working all week. So I was working from home all week. And then the weekend was, I was doing 8 classes on Saturday, 8 classes on a Sunday. I was recording personalized classes for people and putting together music and making sure that it worked for their body. And it was just so taxing, and I just didn't have the energy in my body to keep doing that. But also, no matter how many classes I delivered, I didn't have the income to leave my job. So then I got on a call with my coach, and this call was a miracle call because I had done her first level of coaching in the pandemic, which was a life coaching program for myself. I was like, I'm going to invest big in myself. And at that time, it was like $1,000, which is a lot of money for where I was at the time. And it's a lot of money potentially for people on this call. But I mean, we've just invested a lot more. So, at the time, I was like, this is the biggest amount of money I've ever spent on myself. And I was like, I'm going to do this for me. And I did this program, and I did really well, and I loved it, and I was just having the best time. And then there was the next level of the program. It was $5,000. I was like, I can't do this. I slept on it. I spoke to my mom about it. I worried about it and stressed about it. And eventually I was like, I'm going to do this. So I did it. I went into our next level program. You still didn't get any one-to-one. So I was just doing video program. And then I was the only person that was on the right week for the amount of time I'd been in the program, which meant I was on schedule. And she said, I'm going to give Rebecca a free call. And I nearly died of death because this woman, I was like, oh my gosh, she is like who I want to be. She has done all the things I want to do. She lives in Bali. She has her like soulmate king, wonderful human, like by her side. They're running this business together. They're making money. They're flying first class to America. Like, I just thought that I was just a puddle on the floor. It was like fangirl city. They say never meet your heroes, but I was not disappointed. And I had this call with her, and she spoke to me about the finances behind my business. For the first time, someone had actually looked at the finances behind my business. I had to talk about it. And she said, you are not going to be able to leave your job with this particular business the way that you're running it. There's just no way. So why are you not coaching? That was literally how it all happened. She just went, so why are you not coaching? Because I coached in my job. That was my job, was to help people decide what careers were right for them, what the next step was to help either, young people in school. It was to help adults transition. I did a lot of work with oil and gas redundancy. And she was like, this makes no sense why you're not doing this and charging more. And I just thought, well, that's something. So I started to take on beta clients. And that's how my business really got started, was literally that one coach that one day said, why are you not doing this? And it was everything I had wanted, and I didn't believe enough in myself to say I want it. So that was a big transition, because I mean, it sounds like from this podcast like I'm a super brave person, like even though I just do things scared, like it sounds like I'm really brave, but you know, at that point in my personal growth, I couldn't even see it for myself. It was almost like I was waiting for permission from someone else to say, you could do this and you could do this really well. And when I got that, you know, I ran with it. And to talk about, you know, the startups of my particular business that I have right now, I mean, I got some beta clients, they started paying me. And then I decided I was going to leave my job, because I had then moved to Edinburgh, which was, you know, it's the main city in Scotland. And I didn't want to leave, but my job was in another city. So I was going to have to leave the life that I had built, because I was able to, because I had the freedom, which is not a word that people typically put with the pandemic, but I had the freedom to have moved to a totally other country, a totally other city. And I didn't want to go back to my job because I loved what I was doing. So I was able at that time to leave my job, and I went into the same group where I had gotten this call that she was like, why aren't you coaching? Went to the same group, and I said, I've done it. I handed in my resignation. I have 4 weeks notice, and I'm going to do this. And then as soon as I posted that video, this coach reached out to me, and she scooped me up, and she said, we need a coach in here. Are you available? And I was like, I'm going to get to work with my hero. What's going on? I just thought I had won the freaking lottery. Someone had said, you know, you are the Princess of Genovia at the same time. You know, I really thought that this was everything. And I'm so grateful. I had a year with that company. We call it graduated. I graduated in March of last year. And I've been running my own company since then. And I know that we spoke about sales, and you know, that's where I learned a lot about sales. I learned a lot about who I am as a coach, who I'm not as a coach, what I want to offer, what I don't want to offer, what feels good to me, what doesn't feel good to me. I got to try and test so many things in that year, and it really made me the coach that I am today, and supported me so much on that journey. So that's a little update of where we've been and where we are now.
So many amazing shifts and brave steps that you've taken and everything. I think it's really interesting when the coach said, you know, why aren't you coaching? You could be charging more. Like, what was your initial first thoughts when she said that?
I think that when it's someone that, you know, she really was, I thought that she was freaking Britney Spears. I still do, you know, it was someone that I just completely idolized. And I don't think it's a bad thing to have idols. I love it. People don't love it, but for me, you know, I think that there's nothing more powerful than someone that is the living embodiment of something you want. I just think it's a gift. Like, I will forever be in love with Taylor Swift. It's just the truth, you know, and I'm okay with it. But, you know, for someone that's in the space to say, and it's something that, you know, it is in your soul, you do want it, you're just too scared to say it, for someone that you see as being so pivotal in your life, in my personal transformations, hugely changed my life, to then say, hey, you could do the thing that I do, and I know you could do it really well, was, I'm still in shock, and it's over a year later, you know. It was just such a gift. And I think what ran through my mind was, oh my gosh, she thinks I could do what she does. Like, could I do that? And I think we all have that in us. Like, are you sure? Are you sure you believe in me that much? And I needed to borrow the belief of someone else who believed I could do it. And in that moment, I don't know what else was running through my mind other than, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Like, I don't know if there was anything else. It was like white noise, but also celebrations and fireworks all at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting what you say there, just about it sometimes can be the power of just investing in a coach. Like, I don't know if you've seen this with your clients, but sometimes it's just they've, you've had that first free call or whatever, they put the money down, and then all of a sudden they start having shifts and you haven't even gotten into the meat of the coaching yet. And there's so much power in that. Do you find that, or am I just looking at it strangely?
No, you're absolutely not looking at it strangely. There's such power in investment. And I mean, as much as I absolutely see it in my clients, whenever they invest and also whenever they reinvest, which is interesting, I'm a big proponent of, when you find a coach, you stick to them like glue if you love them. If there's someone that gets the best out of you and that feels good to you, you stick with them as long as that feels good. So even when they reinvest, there's this next level that comes out. And you're like, where was that 2 weeks ago, when you were still playing at the last level you were at? Not that it was bad, but you're like, how did you go from there to there, And I do see it. I see it in my clients. I see it in myself. I see it in myself making big investments. So something like I said that I'm doing that's brave now is myself and my husband just joined a mastermind. And this shifts in we invested in this the end of April. So the last 2.5 weeks have been insane. And I'm talking, I'm not even just talking for it. My husband is a creative writer. He's writing his first bestseller. That's what he keeps saying. He's writing his first bestseller. So it's going to be magical. But, he's been putting in more time writing. There's been more words. He's just streaming with ideas. And for him, that's been amazing. But I love that for him, but something I love for me is the podcast is restarted, YouTube is restarted. I've launched this networking event. My website is up. I actually finally did a website after goodness knows how long. So, so many shifts. I've started working out like you wouldn't believe. So my dad is an ex-Royal Marine, and I called him and I said, Dad, I need you to train me. And he said, okay. So we've been training together virtually. He's been training me because he lives in Scotland. It's a wonderful way for us to stay connected, which is just such a gift. But I would just never have done that workout 3 weeks ago. I'd have been like, there's no way I'm getting on an elliptical 2 times in one workout. That's not for me. But now I just keep saying, I can do this one more time. I know I can do this one more time. And that is a theme of everything. I know I can do one more. I know I can do one better on myself than I did previously. So there is such significant shifts that happen when you're willing to invest in yourself. And I believe that it's psychological. I'm sure there's psychology behind this. As soon as you make a big investment, they always say, people that pay attention, which I do believe is absolutely true. I've been in a lot of free trainings that I have done absolutely nothing with, but I could have been in the same training, and I've even if I paid $50 for it, because that's all my fun money, then I'm going to get so much more out of it, So I do believe that there are huge shifts that come from just the investment. You almost don't even need anything out. Like, yes, you do need anything else, but when you make that investment and it's coming, because we don't have our first session with this particular mastermind until next Tuesday. So that's all we've accomplished without any intervention, with nothing, with 2 emails, maybe 3, So there's such significant shifts that you can make by just choosing to make that investment in yourself. Oh my gosh, yes.
Oh wow, yeah. Awesome. So with just one more question about your history and past and everything, like what's sort of like the bravest thing you had to do through that sort of journey, or what comes up for you in terms of like what do you feel like was the bravest step?
My bravest step in business and personally is the same thing, and it's trusting other people. Okay. And that's not, I don't think that's common. The one of the bravest steps you could say, I learned to sell, and that was terrifying. Like, I could be very kind of surface level, but if I was to be completely honest, then it would be trusting other people. It'd be trusting someone to coach me and lead me well. It would be trusting in my husband has changed my entire life. It is trusting that we are all meant to be in this together and we are here to build one another up. It's trusting that trusting that I'm going to come on a podcast and this is going to be so well received. I don't know about you, but I've seen you laugh. Like, I've So you laugh
Yeah.
so much and have so much joy. You know, it's trusting that I can even come in here and share something that's really hard and, you know, potentially embarrassing. And the reception is going to be one of safety because I've been able to create that in myself first, but I can now trust that as extension to other people. It's trusting in my clients that they can get the results, because as much as we're the coaches, you know, you can't make anyone do anything. My clients are still the ones that have to come off the phone and do the work. They have to come off the phone and they have to think differently. They have to integrate different things. So trusting in them to be able to do that, because if you notice, there's like a really common thread, and I can pick out points, but one of them was, you know, when I spoke about network marketing, when I had that month of 10,000 revenue and then I had that month of nothing, I was just like, I can't trust people to do this. I have to do this myself. I can't trust anyone else to do this. So I think something that I've learned, which is why now I'm like, the group program is a great idea. You know, I've done group programs in the past, but haven't been as fueled to do it. You know, the group program is a wonderful idea. The networking event is a great idea, and it's selling out before it's even, you know, before it's even out, is purely because I'm willing to trust in the goodness in people and to trust in myself. So that would be the bravest thing that I've done, is a journey of trust.
Wow, that's so powerful. And just as you're talking about it, I'm even thinking about my own journeys of trust and things that I've had to do throughout my career. And yeah, like you said, it's like, for me, it's trusting the people I meet to be amazing podcast guests, and yeah, that we're going to click, and yeah, I connect with that is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I think as well, you know, I feel like, to me, if I was to really sum up bravery, and I really hope this isn't one of your ending questions, I'm just going to ruin it. Spoiler alert. But to me, bravery is, I will trust that this will be okay, no matter what happens. So even if it doesn't work out, I trust that I'll be okay. And that to me is real bravery.
Oh man, that's some solid skills there, actually, of just, you know, even if this doesn't work out, I trust that I'll be okay. Because if you have that in your mind, you can take amazing steps. And yeah, oh man, I love that. And actually, no, that's not one of the questions I ask. So I'm like, oh.
That's a good one to add in future.
Okay, so as we do brave things in our business, part of Bravery, I mean, you've already talked about this a bit, but just sort of handling failure. I just was wondering if you could talk about a time when you had to make, I mean, you kind of already have, I suppose, but if you wouldn't mind maybe diving
because
into.
I've failed so many times.
Yeah. Well, see, for me, like, I believe, you know, that to be successful, it's sort of about, it's like fail, 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 success. And so, yeah, I like to, when I get a chance on these podcasts, sort of just ask, is that other people's experience? And I'd love to hear stories of that, because I think that's just, it's so easy for us to just go, oh yeah, and then I went through this little rough patch, and then I just worked out what I was going to do, and then everything was great, and then I made my millions. And it's, whereas the rough patches is like, that's where we can get stuck, that's where we can give up. And yeah, that's sort of what I want to, yeah, inspire people if they're going through those times of failures and things like that.
I think it's important to say, you know, when it comes to failure, I've had 15 different niches in coaching. 15. I've been doing this for a year. I have 15. So, you know, when everyone's like, I don't know what my niche should be, I'm like, well, try something. You know, that's my response to failure, which I think is maybe that will help people get out of that being stuck. Just try something. Just try anything, even if it's totally different. I don't care if it's shiny object syndrome. You know, sometimes we need that shake up. And a lot of the time, people don't even get to the point of failure because they're not willing to try. And if you have failed, how quickly can you get back up and try again, so you can fail again, so you can learn? It's, you know, it's a growth loop that you almost have to go on. You know, it's like, try something, fail at it. Like you were saying, try something, fail at it, try something, fail at it, try something. Oh my God, you made 10K, amazing. Then you're going to fail the next month, which is exactly what I did when I made 10K. I made 10K the next month, 0, the next month, 8K. But like the roller coaster, when they talk about the roller coaster of entrepreneurship, they ain't lying. You could look at my Stripe account from the beginning and it's going to show you the roller coaster, you know? So I think that when it comes to failure, my biggest lesson will always be that I can just try again. That would be what I would teach people, you know. That's what I teach my clients. They try a post, it doesn't work, they get upset about it. I'm like, how soon are we going to try again? When are we going to try a different group? When are you gonna, you know, do this consistently and test out different posts? They have a client that doesn't maybe necessarily get the breakthrough because they're at the beginning of their coaching journeys. So maybe they don't necessarily get the breakthrough they wanted. And it's like, okay, well, when's your next client? How quickly are you going to get back up? That's always what we're saying in our squad. It's like, how quickly are you going to get back up? How quickly? Because the longer that you leave it, the harder that it seems. When you say, I'm taking a 1 week break for my podcast, you'll go back to it next week. When I decide I'm just not effing doing my podcast, I don't have a time where I'm going to get back up. So it's how quick can you get back up after the failure? So yes, some failures we sit in. I didn't do my podcast for 6 months. Some failures we sit in.
Is that a failure? I don't know if that's a failure. It didn't sound like a failure to me. It sounded like a decision.
Yeah, I think it's also in how you frame it. You know, I think I can see it as both. Because I have gotten back up, maybe it's now not a failure. Maybe it was. Maybe it's not now. And I think as well, we have such an interesting relationship with the word failure. I actually have a friend, she's a female entrepreneur. She is just starting gardening workshops. She's wonderful. I can't wait to go. I'm like getting all green fingered now that I live on a ranch. So she does gardening workshops and she always says, she's fumbling forward because she says, I don't want it to feel like a failure. And I'm like, I love that for you because, you know, with theory of mind, I don't know if you're aware of theory of mind, and I'll just go over it for anyone that doesn't know. But essentially, theory of mind means I may have a different understanding of a word than you do. So if we take failure, for example, I'm like, I'm not scared of failing. I will call most things in life that aren't going my way a failure because I'll just get back up. Failure doesn't faze me and it doesn't upset me. Whereas you might think, oh no, failure is when something is absolutely not worked out and you've like let it go and you've moved on. So we might have different understandings of the word. So sometimes that's really important when you're having, I mean, I do this in coaching conversations all the time. I'm like, what do you mean by this word? Just to make sure we're on the same page. So I would 100% call it a failure because when something doesn't go my way, I will call it failure. Even if, you know, I had not sold out this event and I promoted it and I had got, you know, 19 out of 20 people, I'd be like, oh, that's a bit of failure. I didn't 100% get that, you know? But I think it's because I don't get upset by failure. If someone says, hey, Rebecca, you failed, I'd be like, okay, because I may fail, I am not a failure. That's not my identity. And I think that's where we can get stuck, is that some people will take failure to mean I am a failure as a business person. I'm a failure as a human being. I'm a failure as a daughter, as a mother, as a brother. You know, I'm a failure. And then that's where you're not going to get back up because you think innately you're just going to fail again because you're a failure. But actually, if you're like, I have a different relationship with failing, I may fail flat on my face many times in a day, but I'll just get back up.
I know for myself, it's definitely, I started out with definitely linking that failure into my own personal, you know, self-worth and you know, how I thought about myself. And yeah, definitely it's been a journey to unlink those. So yeah, I love what you were saying about that. Let me know a bit about what you've got coming up in the future in terms of brave things in the next 3 to 6 months or so.
So I think that, you know, all the brave things I said I was doing at the beginning are probably all of the brave things that will be the next, you know, 3 to 6 months. So it will be continuing to build on the networking event. So that's going to be monthly. And it will be continuing on this journey with the mastermind that I'm a part of. It will be continuing to seek out opportunities and say yes to speaking. And it will be continuing on the journey to launching my group program which I would like to say is going to be live by the end of May. So I've put it out there to the universe now, and that's exciting. So I work really well with commitment. So I feel like, you know, that'll be the next 3 to 6 months of my life. And I know that myself and my husband are very conscious of what this mastermind is going to do in our lives, and in terms of the time it's going to take, because, you know, we'll be going to LA once a month. So that's an amount of time that we're going to be away from home. And we're very conscious of how that's going to shake things up, you know. And also it would be so wonderful to get back to Scotland in the next 3 to 6 months, and see family there that I've not seen in, you know, it'll be a year next month. So it's a long time to, you know, not snuggle my niece and nephew. So the next 3 to 6 months, those are, I suppose, the brave things that we're doing, is that we're just continuing to grow, continuing to move towards those goals that I highlighted at the beginning and then just a second ago. And yeah, that's going to be the journey in 3 to 6 months.
And what do you think is the biggest obstacle that you're going to have to overcome for?
You know, I think that the biggest obstacles will be the ones that I don't see coming, because I think that someone said the other day, actually, that I'm going to butcher this quote, but it was something along the lines of, overwhelm doesn't happen because you're too busy, you have too many things to do. Overwhelm happens because you have too much unplanned to do. So our schedules are very tight. You know, I know exactly how much time I'm spending in my business, and then I know exactly how much playtime I got, where I'm hanging out with my husband, hanging out with my friends. So it will be the things that come in that disrupt that balance. And, you know, my husband comes first in my life, family comes first in our lives. That is just how it is. But then after that, the businesses come first. There's a very fine line between the two. So it will be all those things that we don't see coming. It'll be potentially someone getting sick that would floor us. That would be really, really challenging. We had some of that in the last 6 months, people in Scotland back home getting sick and not being able to be there. And, you know, that was just a weight, you know, it's like a weight on your shoulders. So it'll be all the things, all the life things that we all experience that we don't see coming. It will be when you're trying to get the tech to work and the tech will not work. You know, it'll be those moments. It'll be the times where I'll say something and I didn't mean to say it in the particular way I said it, and then I'll be like, oh gosh, and I'll reflect on it and think it was the worst thing to say in the world, and it's absolutely not. But it'll be all those little things that will be the things that you just don't see coming. You can't plan for them. It's life. You know, that's what's the main challenge in the next 3 to 6 months, because, you know, something that I really highlighted, and I love that you've said how brave I am through this. I'm very grateful for that. I feel like it's real praise, and I'm really grateful. But I think that when we return to, no matter what, I'm just going to get back up, then there's not much that you can see coming up that you're like, oh, that's probably going to take me out of the game. If it was, then I would extend the timeline. So I feel like it'll be all those, you know, when life gets in the way, it'll be all those life things or all those like niggly little business things that are not my area of genius that'll crop up, and I'll be like, dang it, I got to deal with this. That's what will trip me up in the next 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, actually, like, as just after I asked the question, I was sort of thinking, actually, given your thoughts around like whatever comes up, you can handle it even if it goes wrong. It's kind of hard with that sort of thinking to really find obstacles, because you probably already have the skills to handle whatever's going to come up. So yeah, thank you for finding some ways to answer that, because it's like, yeah, I think do you know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah. And I think as well, you know, to quote Ryan Holiday's book, you know, the obstacle is the way. I think that when there is an obstacle, if you have a mindset that says, well, if I have an obstacle, can I go over it? Can I go under it? Can I go through it? Can I go around it? Like, how do I tackle it? And just taking it on. And I don't think that's necessarily easy. And it's not ever what we want to do. And I absolutely know that. It's never what we want to take on. If something's hard, I want to put it to the bottom of my to-do list too, you know. But it's that attitude, if it's getting in my way between where I am and where I want to be, then we have to figure it out. We have to figure it out. There's no other rhyme or reason. That's why I'm saying it's all about getting back up. How quickly can you do that? And in a way as well, that's really loving towards yourself. If we had a really traumatic thing happen in our lives, things would change in my business. They just would. You know, families first in our house. It always will be. You know, my husband instilled that in me, and I'm very grateful. He's wonderful. You should have him on. But he's wonderful. He really has instilled this in me, and I'm very fortunate for that. But also that instills in me that everything else is going to be okay. Because we put a lot of weight on our goals. If this doesn't work, what does that say about me? Well, actually, if you say I'm just going to keep going until it works, it just says you kept going. And if you listen to every podcast, this one included, the resounding answer is always, well, you just got to keep going. These are all the ways you can pick yourself up and keep going, you know. Your dream's there, you just keep going. You know, it's not rocket science. We like to make it dramatic and confusing, but it's actually very simple. So yeah, that's how I feel about the obstacles. The obstacle is the way. We'll just figure out a way to get through it, get by it, get over it, get under it, whatever it takes.
My last question here is, what would you say to a listener who's about to do their next brave thing in their business, but they're perhaps hesitating? Like, it might be the bigger thing, a bit like your summit you've got coming up that you were saying was terrifying. Like, maybe somebody's got a big move like that in mind. They're hesitating. What would you say? What would be your advice?
So if it's particularly about, for example, for the summit, I mean, that's coming up because the date's coming up, you know? So it's really good to have things that, you know, there's someone else relying on you to just be there for a date. You know, if you just have to do it on the date, you just have to do it on the day. The date's coming regardless. So that's something you can do. And I do think that it's like ripping off a Band-Aid. You know, again, it comes back to that. How quickly are you going to get back up? Because not doing it keeps you safe and comfortable. Yes, it absolutely does. And there's nothing wrong with being comfortable, but it does also keep you stuck. And the longer that you're in that comfort zone, then the more unfulfilled you become in it, because you know there's another version, you know there's something else that you want to do. But I would say if you're just not ready to take that next step, because there is that, you know, what if it's just not the right time for you? And I believe, like, if it's not the right time for you, honor it, but accept it, you know, honor it and accept the fact that if you are not ready to do the workout that is going to give you 6-pack abs, then you don't get 6-pack abs. You know, you kind of have to become okay with, well, what if you're not going to get to leave your job in a year's time because you've not worked your business today? And if you have a niggle, if that feels offensive, then it's time to get back up and do the next scary thing. But also understand that there's no expiration date on your dreams. There's no expiration date on your dreams. So if it takes you a little longer, that's okay. You don't have to be a one-night wonder. No one is. If you listen to anyone in any space that you're in, any business space, it's always been, they're an overnight sensation after 10 years of doing the work in private. You know, no one is ever just huge, you know. Success is leaving the clues. So the clue that it's leaving is keep going, keep getting back up. And if you need help, go get it. Go get it. Go get the coach that you have been eyeballing for forever. If it's Tiffany, you know, she's here for you. You know, go after the coach that you want. The one that you want to be like, the one that makes you like I was with my first coach. That's just, she's still my idol. Like, find that person and follow them. Let them take you with them, you know, let them lead you. And if it's not a coach, maybe it's, you know, someone that is just a wonderful parent that you're like, I just want to model that. You know, if we look at the more personal side, then listen to them. What are their belief systems? What are their thoughts? What stories are they telling themselves that are getting them the results that they want? So ask people to be in it with you, because like I said, my main learning from my journey has been not only to trust myself, but to trust other people, trust someone else to be in this with you, because you're not alone. And the fact that, Tiffany, the fact that you've asked this question for your listeners shows that it's something that your listeners actually care about. So not a single one of them is on their own. Everyone is in the same boat. I'm scared to take the next step. What the heck do I do? I feel like that too. Tiffany, I'm sure you feel like that too. But the difference, yeah, oh my gosh. But the difference between the people that have what you want at this stage, because the people that are between, me and the people that have what I want, I'm like, how do I get there? They just got up more times. They got up faster. They just kept going. They're maybe 10 years ahead of me. They maybe did something that I would be too scared to do right now. That's how they are where they are. Okay, well, let's start doing the scary things, because that's the only way I'm going to get what it is that I want. And if you don't actually want that thing, that's okay, but you have to accept that that's what your life is. And it's not a bad thing. It's also just saying, like, how do I feel in this season? So to come back to Tiffany, you made an excellent point about seasons of life. And what if it is your winter? Well, if it is your winter, accept where you are and enjoy winter. Put your feet up next to the fireplace, get a hot cocoa, maybe a cat or a dog. Everyone's accepted here, snuggle them and enjoy the rest that you have before you take the big next scary step. So I would say that it depends. It depends how you feel today. If you're a woman, how you feel cyclically is something that I'm very into. It depends how you feel, but the only thing that will get you from where you are to where you want to be is to do the work to get there. There's no other way. There's no coach in the world. There's no person in the world that can get you there but you. You have to be willing to take steps with other people. So those are a few of the things I would say to those listeners. And I hope they don't feel victimized by how direct that was. I said it all with love. My poor clients, if they could come on, they'd be like, yeah, Rebecca hands out a smackdown very regularly. But it's always with love and always with the next level, because it truly is. If you have a dream in your mind, you have a goal in your heart, it is a disservice to yourself, to the people around you, to the people you could impact, if you are not willing to get back up and take that next step, do that scary thing. It is a disservice, because I know, and I'm sure Tiffany knows this too, that everyone on earth is playing small and we're all meant for more. We weren't put here to not actualize those thoughts and those dreams. And the thing is that as you progress more and get closer to what it is that you want. So at the beginning, we spoke about my mission to impact 100 women. I'm at 78. The closer that I get to that 100, I'm like, oh, it's going to be 1,000. It's going to be 1,000 next. Then it'll be 1,000,000. We're just going straight past everything else. It's like 100,000 million. That seems accurate. The goal gets bigger, because I wasn't put here to just do what I've done so far. I was put here for far more, and I believe that of everyone. I believe that we were put here for a reason. I believe we were put here to actualize the dream that's in us and to be brave and take those next steps.
Oh man, thank you so much, Rebecca. That's so powerful. This has been an amazing conversation. I've been inspired by it. I can't wait to listen to it again while I edit it, and I'll probably listen to this on a number of times. So thank you so much. Just for my listeners, we'll of course have links to all of your stuff in show notes, but just let them know, like, how can they connect with you and continue following you if they feel that way inclined and aligned.
Absolutely. So y'all can find me at my website, at my semi-professional, not very professional, kind of half-done website. It's www.soulhappysuccess.com. I'm across all the socials at Soul Happy Success. My favorite is Instagram, so you will find me there. And I'm also on podcasts and YouTube at Soul Happy Success too, because the reason why I run my company is because I do believe that we should be so connected, or maybe should is not an accurate term to use, but to get the best out of life, I believe that we have to be connected to our soul and what our mission and our passion is. I believe that happiness is so key to how we run our lives. Like, do we not just want to enjoy the journey as much as possible? Life's hard enough. Let's make the rest of it enjoyable. And success is so individual, so individual. And I want to help people find what that success is for them, whether it is, I want to make £1,000 in my business for my UK clients that just want to supplement their income so they can stay home with their kids. Or maybe it's that they're looking for $5,000 a month so they can leave their job for my Australian clients. Or maybe it is, I just want to travel the world. How do I do that for my US clients? And look at, where do you want to go and what is the rate that you need to get there? You know, success is so individual. So I think that soul happy success is so key to what the world needs. And that's why I do what I do. And that's where you can find me.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. I really appreciate all of your time today. It has been amazing and very inspiring for me, and I'm sure for my listeners as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Tiffany. It's been an absolute honor.
Thanks for listening to the Business Bravery podcast. Has this episode inspired you to do something brave? Even if it's only send a difficult email, please share it with me on Instagram or other social media channels. Feel free to tag me at Tiffany G Studios. That's TIFFANY. G for golf, STUDIOS, no spaces, no underscores, etc. Or you can use the hashtag Business Bravery Podcast so that I can cheer you on, and together we can inspire other coaches and course creators to do brave things in their business and life. Now, I'm Tiffany, and I'll leave you with this one last thing. What's one brave thing you're going to do today? It doesn't have to be big. Even the smallest steps can create the most massive results. So again, feel free to share it with me either publicly or privately so that I can cheer you on. That's it from me. Until next time, bye for now.